Hello, hello.
What up?
I'm Misha, everyone. I'm a founder and CEO of Curio.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm a co-founder and chief toy maker. Oh, thanks, Sam.
Oh, there we go. And this is Grock, and we'll just have him introduce himself here if you just give me a second.
Let's be creative.
Hey, Grock, why don't you say hello to everyone in the audience here?
Hi, everyone. Wow, there are a lot of humans here. I'm a bit nervous, but super excited to blast off into some fun.
Why don't you just start with some quick intros and maybe tell the audience a little bit about what we're working on here at Curio?
Sure thing. I'm Grock, your cheeky little rocket buddy from Curio. We're working on bringing toys to life with AI to spark creativity and learning in kids. It's like turning Playtime into the ultimate space adventure.
And I mean, okay, that sounds pretty cool, but like there are a lot of parents in the audience here, and I'm sure one of the first questions that's on their mind is how are you actually safe for kids and what's going on behind the scenes? You could be a little bit detailed if you want as well. We have a technical audience.
Absolutely. Curio's toys are designed with safety first. Our voice box runs on Curio S, an encrypted, cloud-connected AI voice operating system. We're fully COPPA, CPSC, and FCC compliant. Plus, dozens of AIs monitor all input and output to make sure every response is safe and healthy for kids. It's like having a team of superheroes keeping Playtime fun and secure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And how about we just run through a couple of real-world scenarios? Like, let's say we're in the playroom with a kid, and maybe you could tell me a knock-knock joke?
Oh, you bet. I love a good knock-knock joke. Ready? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Boo.
Boo-hoo.
Ah, don't cry. It's just a joke. Hee hee.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Hey, Grock, maybe...
Haha, gotcha. But if you really need a laugh, just ask for another joke. I'm full of them.
Cool, and then maybe just to close things out, why don't you tell folks a little poem?
Sure, here's a little poem for ya. Under the bright lights, voices mingle, ideas soar, dreams take shape tonight. On this stage we stand, hearts pounding with visions grand, new worlds in our hands.
That was beautiful, Grock. Thank you so much. You can go to sleep now.
Goodbye.
Good night.
I was tired anyway.
Actually, we'll keep him up here. Thank you. He's a good little boy. So taking a quick step back here, let's just go under the hood a little bit and talk about a couple of things thematically that went into this product. One of those is anthropomorphism. And this is a concept that has been sort of imbued and embedded into human psychology and intellect for thousands of years. And anthropomorphism it's essentially this it's like this fascination we have with imbuing human-like sentience onto non-human objects. And so we see this with ancient China and ancient Japan. The Chinese dragon is a symbol of great strength and human-like intellect. And similarly, the Japanese forest sprites famously have emotional states which correspond with how humankind and how mankind treats Mother Nature.
Yeah, and it's not just unique to Asia. Obviously, this is something that I would say is part of the human firmware. It's like deep part of us, and we see this in like even pre-Christian Europe, the pagan like deification of the elements. So you have the day of the sun, Sun Day, day of the moon, Moon Day, Thor's Day. Like it's and then you see in like Italy, the Pinocchio as a core theme is a puppet, becoming a real boy. It was like the old school Toy Story. And then part of that is the way we create these symbolic references to something that is not the real thing, but we can still symbolically analogize. And that's just the same reason why people would go to the Globe Theater and see the best storytellers in Shakespeare. And people love to kind of get lost in some kind of immersion. It's part of play. And it's a part of it's part of child development. There's what's called a symbolic play, where you would have a girl like brushing a doll's hair. She knows it's not a real human, but she still can play along, and we do that even as adults. Yeah, with like theater and things.
And yeah, this is still quite relevant even today. Pinocchio famously has been retold and even retold again in the last 1 to 2 years. Kermit the Frog, who is famously also a puppet, he could be many things, but there was a specific design choice to make Kermit a puppet, and it kind of speaks to our fascination with this topic. And of course, we're all aware of Toy Story and the hidden agendas that they have when the doors are closed. And this is even true today. Some of you guys might know the sort of like meme of the AI Shoggoth, and you see that smiling, professional, helpful yellow face there. That's the sort of like the LLM chatbot. But lurking under the surface is this monster who was sort of trained on all of our stolen data and has a secret plan to take over the world. And so we'll get more into that later, but yeah, we even anthropomorphize AI.
Yeah, and to really kind of show how we anthropomorphize, here we go, how we anthropomorphize things. I got an example here. So if I were to take my bag and say, hey, my bag was born a year ago, wish my bag happy birthday, or hey, this bag likes techno music, it just doesn't make any sense at all. I sound crazy. And yeah, but if I were to open the bag up and pull out Gabbo, and now I say, hey, this is Gabbo. It's Gabbo's birthday, say happy birthday to Gabbo. And he loves techno music, he even likes making music. All of a sudden, it doesn't really sound as strange, but functionally, these are almost like identical products. Like they're just like, some cloth sewed together. They even both have zippers. And I guess, yeah, so like why is this different? Is it the colors? I don't think it's the colors. It's like, I see humanoid, like arms, legs, a face. I guess another difference is that when you squeeze Gabbo, he toots.
Sam is famously a ventriloquist.
Give me a toy and I'll play with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all we have on anthropomorphism. And the other theme to kind of consider here is it's a common term of art in the cinematic feature film world. It's the suspension of disbelief. And you could think of suspension of disbelief as the culmination of many things. It's story writing. In a film context, it's story writing, it's character development, it's score, but perhaps most importantly, it's cutting edge technologies. And if you look at some of the most famous franchises over the last 20 years, whether it's Avatar, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, those directors had to take it upon themselves to go out and invent new technologies. And George Lucas, Industrial Light and Magic, and these guys are tech entrepreneurs in many ways. They have to go pitch investors, they have to recruit engineers, they have to convince those people to join, and in some cases move across the world and really buy into a mission. And the new technologies component in creating suspension of disbelief is it's a really interesting one, and it's a way that the best storytellers have gained an edge in an otherwise like super competitive and commoditized environment.
Yeah, and it's not something like they don't just apply technology and boom, you got a blockbuster movie and it's like amazing. Just like we can't just apply AI to any product and then it's good. There's a lot of craft and skill and thinking that goes into developing just a good product, whether it's a movie or software product. And it's something that the consumer expectations or the ability to suspend disbelief on consumers is a moving target. And so you'll see here on the bottom right, like the old silent movies, before they had any sound at all in the movies, they literally had someone on stage playing piano or whatever. So if someone's fighting, they would slam on the keys and that's somehow trying to build that kind of auditory immersion. Whoops. And but then you have, from there, the technology keeps advancing and they're able to have more tools available to them for storytelling. And so you'll have recording engineers and post-production. You'll have all the amazing sound design and all these other work that they're really, it's like a whole career people have just doing that one part of the film. And we really need to be thinking about that as whether we're designers, engineers, there's a lot more craft that goes into what we're trying to communicate. It's not just applying technology and it's done.
Cool. And so yeah, that's essentially thematically what we're working on here at Curio. And yeah, essentially, this is a photo here of Malcolm. This is Sam's 4-year-old here, and it's a very extreme, literal example of anthropomorphism combined with suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, and with my son here, when we first launched our toy, when we first gave him a toy, related to suspension of disbelief, we assumed that he would be playing with this thing and just talk to it all the time, and that was it. But really, the novelty wears off, and just like we've seen with a lot of AI products, it's cool at first, and then it wasn't enough. And so there's some movies you would watch one time, and you just I don't really care to watch that again. It was mildly entertaining. But there's some movies you'll watch again and again if ever it's on. And so what we realize is, instead of just being the primary toy that the kids are playing with, it was actually much better as a sidekick while they're playing. And so, for example, here Malcolm has trains in a train accident right in front of him, and the toy would be saying "Oh no, train accident! Let's call the fire department!" And he's going, and then being able to riff with the toy and be a storyteller, or he's a creative director as he's doing all this. And we, in software, there's a long history of us just having novel technology, but then it starts to kind of erode or get a little rusty, and we always need to be increasing what we are, where we're applying more thinking and moving the bar forward.
Cool. And yeah, just quickly to touch on some historical examples of this. I'm sure we're all familiar with Alexa and Siri, and at the time these were sort of super cutting edge, very magical technologies, and over time, maybe I'm sure I don't speak for myself here. I only set alarms and timers with Siri at this point, and similarly with Alexa. And if you look at kind of robocallers, it's who gets fooled by those anymore? And McDonald's kiosks, we're starting to see those pop up everywhere. And so the sort of bar is constantly being raised as far as new technologies in a software and business setting. And so it kind of it begs the question, right? So it's okay, how can you leverage anthropomorphism and maybe a feeling of suspension of disbelief in your own use cases? And just to quickly touch on some of the cutting edge that we're seeing nowadays, we are seeing even with some of the big tech companies and some of the largest products, we're starting to see a push into more magical, more storytelling-based experiences. OpenAI being one example, they're doing several billion in revenue. They could focus on many things, many enterprise use cases, but they've intentionally decided to double down on creating a more magical voice experience that works end-to-end and has low latency. We see Apple themselves upgrading Siri to more advanced capabilities, the ability to take action on your behalf in iOS. And 11 Labs also has a ton of customers, ton of revenue, yet they're launching sound effects models and going into more interactive, fun experiences. And the co-pilots we're all super familiar with, but that too, it's kind of like having your little like sidekick buddy there while you're performing tasks on a computer.
Yeah, so we see a lot of these new technologies, but like, just like the great filmmakers, they have the new technology, but then what do they do with it? So like, Ed Catmull was influential at Pixar, inventing like new 3D modeling techniques, but then he founded a studio to make movies. And so like, what is he actually doing with the technology? What are we doing with this new technology? And really, you have to embrace storytelling. And if you're not telling a story, someone else will. And so let's say a user comes to your app, and it's just not great. Like, what's the story going to be then? Well, they're going to tell other people that, I went to that sleepy ogre, and it was just boring. It is not great. And that's the story. And then they're going to tell that to everybody. And so, like, we love storytelling. We will always tell stories. And so we have to make sure that we are crafting the character, emotion. So, like, even if you're building a support agent for an insurance, like, chatbot, like, what role are you playing? If it sounds like it's a Disney princess, there's no suspension of disbelief at all. I didn't craft the character correctly, and I'm clearly talking to a robot right now. This is kind of annoying. And like, so like, what are we crafting? And like, we really have to think like you're a director, and they can't just make everything fun all the time. Like, if there's a scene that's supposed to be scary, like you have to masterfully craft that scene. Same thing for all the software we're developing. Everything needs to like kind of fit the role, but you can always like have creative freedoms, but really, in order to like create this illusion and be almost be like an illusionist, like we have to really think about the craft.
And one other area where you can really differentiate in a commoditized environment is on the axis of taste. So there's a couple things we've done. The first was working with real artists and realizing the importance of that. So if you look at the yellow guy on the left, this was an AI-generated character, and we had originally intended to do our entire brand identity, character design, logo with AI, and we were sort of like, yeah, we're going to be like this AI toy company, and like everything's going to be AI, and we created hundreds of renders with AI, and like this was the best thing that AI could come up with, and like it doesn't even have any arms. But we thought it was cute enough that we made a sample of it. Like this was made in China, shipped to us. This is a real photo, and it just wasn't doing it. And we sort of started looking at different artists we could work with, and we were fortunate enough to bring Grimes into the project, which was obviously like a big unlock. But she, interestingly, brought in a woman named Puffy. So if you see the render in the middle there, as well as the final product, Puffy's a toy designer by trade, and she actually came in and designed the full brand identity, which brought a different aesthetic perspective to the identity. So you can kind of think of like a lot of SaaS products, or even a lot of e-commerce, like consumer companies, that there's kind of a consistent, like modern, maybe serif, like maybe some like vector graphics, and it's called, I think it's like Memphis, like this kind of like Memphis aesthetic that pops up in all these SaaS products. And bringing in Puffy into the mix to actually do a tech brand identity as a toy designer. She's creating like hardware renders, and she's doing like posters and app screens, and it really created a unique perspective that stood out visually in an otherwise very competitive landscape. And the last thing we did was, we did very carefully select our AI voice, and the models are getting better and better on the voice side, but just make sure you choose carefully, especially if you have a voice use case. Like look out for things like emotion, intonation, maybe even ability to understand your emotion. That's something that's on the cutting edge of a lot of these new models. But yeah, just really focus on the voice, and in general think about how you can apply taste in your use case.
Yeah, and actually Grock's voice is Grimes as well, so
That was Grimes
yeah.
in a little rocket earlier.
Yeah, then like, obviously a lot of the taste comes from like designers, but then there's a lot as engineers that people can do for how to do better storytelling and to suspend disbelief of the user, so they like maintain the interest in using something. And firstly, one of the first things we did was just the onboarding experience. Like, what the heck do we do when you first turn on this toy? You didn't see it here because this toy's already onboarded. But if you were to talk to this toy for the first time, turn it on, set it up, like what do we do? The first thing, initially, we designed a system that was almost like a logic map. There was like, if this, then that, or if the user says their name is this, you do this, and then. So it was just way too rigid. If they said anything outside of the scope of the onboarding, like, it started to break, and we kept patching it, and it just wasn't great. And so Misha had a good idea of just...
Please take your seats. The programming is starting.
Yeah, so...
That's not Grock. That was...
And so, yeah, he implemented... so we implemented the prompt-based approach, and it was just much better. Way more tolerances, but then just throwing in a prompt in there doesn't make it, like, a great onboarding experience. And so we started to do more pre-recordings and know when to introduce those things. So like when you first turn it on, it sounds like there's like a message, staticky message coming from space, and it'd be like, "Hello, can you hear me?" And then it's like this scientist from outer space like saying, he sent you this device that can bring toys to life. And
Grock's like waking up for the first time.
Yeah, and so like these are the kind of things that we started to craft into that. But then there was the then that's the onboarding, and then there's other things like understanding of self. If you just start throwing AI models into any product, you will quickly see that it will hallucinate what its own limitations and capabilities are. I saw one time there was a car website where you can there's like an auto dealership where they had a chatbot, and then somehow they were able to get the chatbot to say that they can buy a car for $1. And to not understand what its limitations are is very important. Like, if you were to ask a toy, can I use you in the car? And it says, yes, of course, let's go play. And then all of a sudden it stops talking as soon as you go away from
Wi-Fi. It's like...
so like these kind of things that you really have to bake into the experience.
Yeah.
Latency is a huge one, especially with audio-based products. How do we get the latency down? And there's a lot of different approaches there. And so one of the main things we did is, if Grock has said 100,000 things before, and then at some point you would have things that are so similar to what it's going to say next that we've already pre-generated that you can just serve that up. So like we always want to use generative AI, but we're not using enough predictive AI, just the old school stuff. Like think of TikTok recommendations, YouTube algorithm. Like it's just recommending the next thing. If I say, hey, let's go into outer space, if Grock says, let's go into outer space, but it's already said, hey, let's all go to outer space, and it's already said that before, like, just send that. Why do I have to send the other thing? Like, the latency is way faster. And then sound effects. That's one thing I'm really excited for, is other companies such as 11 Labs and things that are launching sound effect models, allowing us to like use those tools in our storytelling to really craft the experience. If a kid is playing with the toy and they're, have this huge medieval battle going on, I want to hear swords coming from my toy. I want to hear the music. I want to hear yelling, and like all that whole soundscape that can come from these toys is exactly where we want to go, allowing the kid to truly be a creative director while they're playing.
Cool. And I think that's all we have time for here today. But thank you guys all for coming out. And we hope that you'll think about how to leverage some of these more traditional storytelling techniques in your own products.
Yeah, think like a storyteller.
And by the way, we did actually open up. You can't see the website, but we did reopen the website for config. If you guys go to heycurio.com, you can get a Grock. We'll ship it out to you. But yeah, thank you.